Yo, Glenda. Hey, Barbara and I went out shopping yesterday and picked up a nice brisket, and we'll talk about that a little bit. This is my first attempt at doing a video, so here we go. Okay, here's the the package for Butcher's Barbecue Prime Dust, and here's the packaging for the original brisket injection. I like both of these. However, if you use this kosher salt and water, say like a quarter cup to a quart of water is good too. This works a little better, especially on briskets that are select grade or kind of a little bit inferior. So, okay, we're going to get busy and mix some of this up so we can inject the brisket. Okay, I've decided to use the Butcher's Prime Dust because it has a little bit of flavoring in it, beef broth and so on. It's a lot less hassle. If you look on the back side here, it says the instructions that 3/4 of a cup mixed to 2 cups of water will make enough for 2 briskets. I have 1 brisket, so I'm going to make 1 cup. So 3/4 of a cup cut in half, 3/8 of a cup. So there is 2/8, and there's about a half a quarter cup, so that should be pretty close to 3/8 of a cup. Close enough. Okay. Resealing these bags is kind of difficult. I'm not going to waste time with this on the video. Now we're going to add 1 cup of water. I'll slip off camera here for a minute and get a 1 cup measuring cup. Here's a 1 cup measuring cup. See me over here at the sink. I come back and add 1 cup of water. Let's see if you can see down in there, but that's all dust and yuck, or at least it looks like yuck. And I'm going to take this boat motor here and stir this up. Hopefully I don't make too big a mess. And as always, okay, that's pretty well mixed up. There we go, we got it. Okay, as you can see, it drips off there nice, and it's got a nice brothy color to it. Anyway, we're going to stop here, and I'm going to go get the brisket and bring it up. I almost forgot, we let the injection here, you can see it's starting to thicken. We let it sit for at least 20 minutes so that it'll thicken the rest away. It has some soybean soybean flour in it, some corn protein, and some milk whey product, so it has a little sweetness to it. However you taste it raw, it's horrible, yuck. But once it's in the meat and it's cooked, man, it's wonderful. Anyway, I will get back to you here in a few minutes. Okay, now that I've set the the prime injection in the refrigerator to thicken for about 20 minutes, I went downstairs and got this out of the refrigerator. This is a nice packer cut whole brisket. Okay, on the whole brisket from here to here, I don't know if you can see that very well. We'll turn it this way. From here to here is called a flat. This point up here, This end right here is called the point. Okay, as you can see, we got this one from Sobe Meats, and it weighs 16 pounds, and it was $88.55. This piece of meat's really good. It's really tough, has a lot of connective tissue, and so on. I won't bore you with the chemical reasons why we cook it this way, but it has to do with the collagens and the connective tissue. This particular one is a U.S. choice, you see out here, and it's also certified Black Angus. This is a very nice piece of meat. When I'm picking these out on the end of the flat, I try to get one that's really thick. This one's a bit thin for what I really like to do. If I were doing a competition, I wouldn't consider this one. However, it has very nice marbling and didn't have a lot of excess fat. On the back side, you'll notice that I've got a nice, what they call a fat cap. And the way our smoker runs, I need this fat cap on the bottom to protect the meat so it doesn't burn. However, there is some disadvantages to the fat cap, is no rub will stick to it. Anyway, I'm going to cut this thing out of the packaging and wash it, and at that point right now I'm going to stop. Okay, here I am back. I washed this all off nice and clean, got rid of the blood. Now in this step, everybody's got a favorite knife. This happens to be my favorite. It's a fillet knife, but basically all of this fat and silver skin, I cut that off so the barbecue rub will stick to it. And I like this knife because you can slide right underneath of it. And you're going to get some red meat. There's just no way around it. But you can see there I got a nice big fat chunk off and not too much to it. Not too much red meat, I mean. And every little bit of silver skin, you just can't get it all. But we're going to eat this one ourselves, so I'm not so worried about it. Just, this one didn't have a lot to begin with. Okay. Yeah, that little piece right there. Hopefully the light's such that you can see all of that. Okay, now we get a big chunk up here, and that much fat. That just renders and just makes a mess, so I'm getting rid of that. However, I think that there's a layer of fat between the point and the point up here and the flat down here, and this piece of fat is going to go fairly deep, and it will render and so on and baste the meat as it runs out while we're cooking. So I'm not so worried about getting rid of that. I'm just trying to expose the meat so the rub will stick to it. So this really isn't a very lengthy process, but it's a necessary one. And I don't know if you can see along the edge here where this was butchered, and it's kind of dried out, so there's no real freshness there. Nothing will stick to that. So I'm going to go along here, Try to keep my hand out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. And just go along there and expose all that nice fresh meat right there. So we got that. Okay, now I'm going to swing around here. We'll go up here and work on the point. And there's some extra fat up here that we don't need, so I'm going to get rid of that as well. I get fairly ruthless on getting rid of fat up here on top. This is kind of like painting. You know, that sometimes the prep work is worse than and so on. But all this fat that we don't cut off renders out and gets in the bottom of the barbecue pit, and is just more mess to clean up later. So as I work my way around, you see my little pile of fat here keeps growing. I'm going to set that over there out of the way. And I come down on the back side of this, and I got a little bit extra fat right here. Oh, good. This is going to expose so you can see what's going on here. Okay, as I cut that fat off, notice I don't get too much meat, but there's just no way to not get some. But you can see that the flat out here goes up over a nice seam of fat, and you can see it on the other side, goes right straight through. We could separate that, then we would have two pieces of meat, the point and the flat. My preference is cook them together, and then when you separate it, when you get ready to cut it, you just pull this apart. It just pulls apart because it's nice and tender. Okay, then I work back around and I come down this side. And yeah, that fillet knife is, as you can see, it's a fillet knife. It really flexes nice. And it is sharp enough to shave with. But it really doesn't matter what knife you use as long as it's good and sharp and you're comfortable with using it. Here, I'm just going to slide right underneath all this. Let that knife slide right along the edge underneath there. There it goes. You can see, and then I just slide right along underneath the fat. And just kind of fillet it off like you would a fish. And there's a little bit of silver skin I'm going to get rid of. Now you can buy these already trimmed, but as you can see, it's not very hard. And the $2 a pound difference in price, I just soon do it myself. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now you see there's a vein of fat right there. I'm not going to take that off. We'll leave it. And there's the light flashing on the battery pack. So I'm going to cut this edge right here off. If you can see that grain in the meat right there. Okay. Now we want to cut that perpendicular to that grain. So I come down here on the end and I cut a flap. Okay. Once it's got all the rub on it and it's cooked, sometimes it's very hard to see that grain. So I put a little flap right down here. Here, I'll pick that up. See, I just cut a little flap there. Just cut a little flap right. And this edge down here, I'm looking at that. It's a little bit drained out with the water, and I'm just going to go along here and slice that off. Get rid of that so I got something nice and fresh that'll hold rub pretty good. Just enough to freshen it up. Okay. And I think on this side here I'm looking, there's a pretty good chunk of fat there that I really don't need to render out, and deal with that tomorrow when I'm cooking this. Okay, so I cut that off. Okay, hopefully you can see the grain here. You can see the flap. And I've cut off most of the fat, so I got some place for the rub to adhere to. And we just spin this around, and out here on the point you got some nice meat here. Okay, now there's a layer of fat between this muscle and this muscle. It's all fat, but I'm not going to cut that out because I've done that in the past. That makes a big mess because there's just a hole there. And if you come around on this side, you can see how that fat extends down the other side. And we're just going to leave that there. Some folks really like that fat. I'm not a big fan of it, but it does taste good. So anyway, we're going to stop right here, and we'll come back with the injection. Okay, here we are back. I'm going to inject this brisket now with the Butcher's Prime Dust injection. And we come back, and I don't know, I think some people mix this in with the original, but I'm not going to do that today. So you can see, this is just a nice broth. I'm not going all out. And I have an injector, just a cheap one. It's got 2 holes in the needle, and as you can see, it works pretty good. So now we get this over here out of the way, and we look at this. And then the instructions on the competition, the guys do a checkerboard. I don't know if you can see that, but they'll do a row of shots and back and forth. I don't like any holes in the top because it seeps up through. So I go in and I look at the grain, and right here, and I just start in and I inject that. You see it plump up the minute it starts to weep over into the surface, and I stop. I can see all that. That one's starting to run back out. Okay. And basically all I'm trying to do is get a little salt down inside the meat so it has a nice flavor all the way through. I know the guys on the competition circuit always criticize me for doing it this way, but I have placed it a few times, and I'm not nearly as... I'm just trying to cook a nice tasting Texas brisket. Sometimes, I don't know if you can see that, where I'm shooting out across the room, but it did. And I'm going to get some paper towel. because some of it's running back out. Now, the other that I'm not using tonight is the original brisket injection. It's much thicker, and it also has a lot more monosodium glutamate, and I try to avoid that eating at home. In competition with the judges eat, I really don't care, but anyway, we'll plump that up, get some salt down in there so it'll taste good when we eat it tomorrow. And as you can see, the juice goes flying out. It's all over the tabletop. Yuck. And that went everywhere. But as you can see on the towel, it's just beef broth is all I'm putting in there. A lot of times when we're doing competition, we'll mix it with the other, and it does a very nice job of seasoning that. However, competition food is all about getting one flavorful bite, because that's all the judge gets. You pack so much flavor into it. But once you start eating that, it's not really very pleasant to eat because it's too much spice and so on. And I find in the real world, if you put too much spice on here, you don't get to taste any of the meat. And I personally like the taste of the meat. Just bear in mind that my methodology, I don't know if you can see that out there, when they pump that in, that thing plumps right up. But like I said, if you don't have any beef broth, I've used salt water and it does just great. And we're going to run out of this because I've injected the, yeah, see that come flying out of there? That one too. Now, and we'll come around here to the point. The point also has grain goes every direction. It is really a very flavorful piece of meat, but the grain goes everywhere. That one's going in and staying. I don't want to poke too many holes in it. Now, there we go. As you can see, we come out pretty close to the right amount. And now I haven't overspiced this meat. And I've got some flavor. And I got, more importantly, I got some flavor down inside the meat. And some salt. So it makes it a much more pleasant piece of meat to eat. Okay. And this is just a regular injector. Needle comes off. You can see the holes in here. There's a hole on each side. Nothing very spectacular. I wash it up and and I just store it with a needle inside there so it doesn't get lost. I find as the older I get, the more I misplace stuff, and that gets kind of old. Spend more time hunting for things than I do using them. Anyway, I'm going to wipe up a little bit around here. Let that sit for a few minutes. If I had poked holes in the top, come down from the top with the original blend here, it makes a crust that the rub won't stick to. And also should note that the needle needs to be clean, needs to be washed up, because the needle marks, it will leave needle marks in the meat, and if you're getting judged on that, those needle marks, the judges hate the needle marks, but more importantly, it doesn't make any difference to the taste. Tastes just fine. That's part of the competition barbecue, is what they're really out, the judges doing, is trying to find everything wrong, because that's just the way they are. I think that that's not really a very pleasant way to run your life, but that's just how people are. It's human nature. You got to find what's wrong instead of what's right. So anyway, as you can see, looking pretty good. All we got to do now is add some rub, but that's going to have to be a few minutes till it soaks in. Okay, here I am back. As you can see, this brisket is dried up some. I'm going to just wipe off the last of the sauce here. And this is one of my favorite rubs here, called Plowboy's Bovine Bold. It's made in Missouri somewhere, and has a little bit of celery seeds or celery salt in it. I like it. All rubs are about the same, and it has salt and so on and so forth. Makes a nice bark. Okay, most of your recipes you'll find online for rub makes about 3/4 of a cup, and that's about enough to do one brisket. I don't use quite that much for working around home, and I'll probably try to get about 1/4 cup on. So okay, here I am back. We're going to put some rub on, and this is Plowboy's Bovine Bold, and I like it a lot. However, once you get into cooking barbecue, you'll find that the principal ingredients are about the same: garlic, onion, paprika, turmeric. This one doesn't have any of the any of the spice that I really don't like. I'll think of the name of it here in a minute. But it does have a little celery seed, celery salt. I like it. It's an all-round rub. And basically, that rub, your recipes online, you'll find it. You can mix your own salt and pepper and so on. Call for about 3/4 of a cup for a batch of it. That's enough to do one brisket. I don't use quite that much, and I'm going to try to get in the neighborhood of about 1/4 cup on here, maybe even a half, but it won't be anywhere near 3/4 of a cup. Anyway, here we go. Any red meat showing, I'm going to put some rub on it. Now we'll turn this up on edge. Now you notice that I don't put any rub on the bottom side because it's all fat and nothing will stick to that. And I just kind of pat it on. I put it on pretty liberal. And I do the edges all the way around first. You can see all that. Get down in that flap, nice and thick. If you can see all that going on or not. And I'm looking, and I gotta put a little more. I look right here, and it started out up there, and I'm down to here, so I'm gonna go a little bit further. But and that stuff is messy, goes everywhere. Anyway, you get the idea. We just coat everything nice, rub it on, and the moisture, the salt in the rub will, and you can see that I got a serious quarter cup on there. Maybe not a full half cup, but a good quarter cup. And anyway, so we got somewhere between a half and 3/4 of half and between a quarter cup and a half a cup on there. Okay, and I just pick up, rub this left, and put it on. And that should be more than good enough. I got a pepper mill. I like a little extra pepper. So I'll put a little pepper on. And now we'll take a little break and wait for that to kind of set up. As you can see all the way around. Any red meat, I put some rub on it. Okay, and we're almost done with the prep. I'm gonna stop this. There it is, all rubbed and set up, ready to go in the fridge overnight. So there we are, all done.